It's been 54 years since a human being last stepped foot on the moon. 54 years. We have smartphones, artificial intelligence, and reusable rockets. So why haven't we gone back? The answer is way more complicated and frankly more disturbing than you probably think. It involves money, politics, tragedy, and a complete shift in what humanity decided was important. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why we abandoned the moon for half a century, and why that's finally about to change in a massive way. Let's start with a mind-blowing fact. Between 1969 and 1972, 12 astronauts walked on the lunar surface across 6 different missions. Then in December 1972, Apollo 17 became the last crewed mission to the moon. Eugene Cernan was the last person to leave footprints there. And then nothing. Here's what most people don't realize. When Apollo 17 lifted off from the moon, NASA actually had 3 more missions already planned. Apollo 18, 19, and 20 were ready to go. The rockets were built. The astronauts were training. The landing sites were selected. And then the government just canceled all of them. Why? Because by 1972, America had already won the space race. The Soviets never landed anyone on the moon. Mission accomplished, right? The entire Apollo program was created to beat the Soviet Union, not to establish a permanent human presence on the moon. It was pure Cold War competition. Once we planted our flag and proved we could do it, the political motivation evaporated. The public started asking why we were spending billions on space when there were problems here on Earth. And honestly, they had a point. The Vietnam War was raging. The economy was struggling. Social issues demanded attention. Moon rocks suddenly seemed less important. But here's the thing that really killed the moon program: the absolutely insane amount of money it required. The entire Apollo program cost about $280 billion in today's money. That's adjusted for inflation to 2026. $280 billion. At its peak in 1966, NASA's budget was 4.4% of the entire federal budget. Today, in 2026, it's less than 0.5%. Each Apollo mission cost roughly $1.2 billion in today's dollars. And that's just for one flight. One trip to the moon and back. The technology was also completely expendable. Every single Saturn V rocket could only be used once. Imagine throwing away a brand new skyscraper-sized rocket after every single flight. Congress looked at these numbers and basically said we're done. NASA's budget got slashed year after year throughout the 1970s. Instead of going back to the moon, NASA pivoted to projects that seemed more practical. The Space Shuttle program promised reusable spacecraft that could fly over and over. The shuttle could carry satellites, conduct experiments, and eventually help build the International Space Station. It seemed like a better investment than going back to the moon. But then something happened that changed everything about how America viewed human spaceflight. Something tragic that made people question if it was worth the risk. On January 28, 1986, the Space Shuttle Challenger exploded 73 seconds after launch, killing all 7 crew members, including teacher Krista McAuliffe. The entire nation watched it happen live on television. School children across America saw their teacher die in real time. It was absolutely devastating. Then 17 years later, in 2003, the shuttle Columbia disintegrated during re-entry. 7 more astronauts lost. 7 more families destroyed. These tragedies made it politically toxic to propose risky human spaceflight missions. Why send people to the moon when we kept losing them just getting a low Earth orbit? NASA became extremely risk-averse. Every mission got scrutinized. Every new program faced questions about whether it was worth human lives. Meanwhile, robotic missions became incredibly successful. We sent rovers to Mars, probes to the outer planets, telescopes that revolutionized astronomy, all without risking a single human life. Scientists started asking a legitimate question. Do we actually need humans on the moon? Or can robots do the job better and cheaper? A robot doesn't need food, water, or oxygen. It doesn't get radiation sickness. It doesn't need a ride home. You can take way more scientific risks with machines than with people. There were attempts to restart human moon missions. President George Bush announced a plan in 2004 to return astronauts to the moon by 2020. This program was called Constellation. New rockets were designed. New spacecraft were tested. Billions were spent. And then President Obama canceled the entire thing in 2010. Why? Same reason as always. Money and political priorities. The program was behind schedule and over budget. Congress didn't want to keep funding it. Obama redirected NASA to focus on eventually reaching Mars instead. The moon was seen as been there, done that. Mars was the exciting new frontier. But here's what changed everything. And I mean everything. China announced their intention to land astronauts on the moon. Suddenly, America remembered how motivating competition can be. The same force that drove Apollo in the first place. Nobody wants to be second in a new space race. China successfully landed robotic missions on the moon, including on the far side where no one had ever touched down. They're not messing around. In 2017, President Trump directed NASA to return astronauts to the moon. And this time, it actually seems to be happening. The program is called Artemis. Unlike Apollo, Artemis isn't about just visiting the moon. It's about staying there, building a base, establishing a permanent human presence. The first Artemis mission already flew in 2022, an uncrewed test of the new rocket and spacecraft. It worked perfectly. Artemis 2 will fly astronauts around the moon without landing, currently scheduled for 2027. Then Artemis 3 will actually land humans on the lunar surface. And get this, for the first time in history, a woman and a person of color will walk on the moon. The crew will be more diverse than any previous space mission. The technology is also completely different now. SpaceX is building a reusable lunar lander. The whole system is designed for sustainability and repeated missions. So after 54 years, we're finally going back. Not just to plant flags, but to actually stay and explore. To use the moon as a stepping stone to Mars and beyond. If this video blew your mind, smash that like button and subscribe to your Space Wizard. We're covering every step of humanity's return to the moon as it happens. The next few years are going to be absolutely incredible for space exploration. After half a century of waiting, humans are finally going back to the moon. And this time, we're staying.